Why blood sugar is harder to manage in winter, and why willpower isn't the problem. Have you ever noticed that once winter settles in, things that felt manageable a few weeks ago suddenly feel harder? Maybe your energy crashes earlier in the day, your cravings feel louder, or your mood feels less steady, even though you haven't dramatically changed how you eat or live. You might catch yourself thinking, I was doing fine before. Why does this suddenly feel so difficult? That question alone tells me how many women quietly assume that these shifts must be about discipline, motivation, or willpower. But here's what I want you to hear right from the start. If winter feels harder on your energy, appetite, or mood, that doesn't mean you failed. It means your body is responding to seasonal changes, exactly as it was designed to do. This episode isn't about fixing yourself, tightening control, or starting over. It's about understanding what's actually happening beneath the surface when blood sugar regulation becomes more challenging in winter, and how to support your body without restriction, tracking, or extremes. Because this isn't a character flaw, it's physiology. And once we understand that, the conversation changes completely. When people hear blood sugar, they often think only about diabetes or lab numbers. But blood sugar regulation plays a role in how you feel every single day, long before anything ever shows up on a test. Blood sugar is simply the amount of glucose circulating in your bloodstream, and glucose is your body's preferred fuel source. Your brain, muscles, and organs rely on a steady supply to function well. When blood sugar stays relatively stable, you're more likely to experience consistent energy, clearer thinking, steadier moods, and fewer intense cravings. When blood sugar swings, rising quickly and then dropping just as fast, you may notice fatigue, irritability, shakiness, anxiety, headaches, or that familiar, I need something sweet right now feeling. For many women, these swings also affect focus, patience, and emotional regulation. What's important to understand is that blood sugar balance isn't about eating perfectly. It's about rhythm. It's about how often you eat, how well meals are balanced, how stress hormones interact with glucose, and how well your body is supported overall. And in winter, several of those factors shift, even if your habits haven't. Let's talk about what actually changes in winter, because this is where so many unnecessary self-blame can finally be set down. First, insulin sensitivity naturally decreases in colder months. Insulin is the hormone that helps move glucose from your bloodstream into your cells to be used for energy. In winter, your body becomes slightly more resistant to insulin, not because something is wrong, but because your body is prioritizing conservation. Historically, winter was a time when food was less predictable, movement patterns changed, and survival mattered more than efficiency. That adaptive response still exists. Second, cortisol, your primary stress hormone, often runs higher in winter. Cortisol raises blood sugar to make sure energy is available. That's helpful in short bursts, but when cortisol stays elevated, it contributes to higher baseline blood sugar, followed by deeper crashes later. Shorter days, disrupted routines, reduced sunlight, holiday pressures, and even subtle seasonal stressors all contribute to this shift. Third, sleep quality often declines in winter, even when we don't consciously realize it. Darker mornings, earlier evenings, and altered circadian cues can lead to less restorative sleep. Poor sleep alone reduces insulin sensitivity the next day, making blood sugar regulation harder before you've even eaten breakfast. Taken together, these changes mean that the same meals and habits that felt fine in fall may suddenly leave you feeling drained, hungry, or off balance in winter, not because they're wrong, but because your body needs have shifted. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's adapting. When energy dips or cravings increase, many women instinctively try to regain control by eating less, skipping meals, cutting carbohydrates, or tightening food rules. But in winter, Those strategies often make blood sugar instability worse. Here's why. Undereating, especially skipping meals, raises cortisol. When cortisol rises, blood sugar rises with it. That leads to sharper drops later, which increases cravings, irritability, and fatigue. Restriction also signals scarcity to the body, which encourages energy conservation and increases hunger hormones. In other words, trying to be disciplined often creates the exact instability you're trying to fix. This is especially important for women, whose hormones are already more sensitive to stress, underfueling, and irregular eating patterns. Winter is not the season for metabolic tightening. It's the season for steadiness. Cravings in winter aren't a moral failing. They're often a sign that your body needs more consistent fuel, warmth, and safety. When we respond with control, the body resists. When we respond with consistency, the body stabilizes. Supporting blood sugar in winter doesn't require tracking numbers or following rigid rules. It requires meeting your body's needs consistently and compassionately. First, eat enough, especially protein. Protein helps slow the release of glucose in the bloodstream and supports satiety and energy. This doesn't mean calculating grams or forcing foods you don't enjoy. It simply means prioritizing protein at meals, particularly earlier in the day. Breakfast with protein sets the tone for more stable energy and fewer crashes later. Second, focus on timing rather than restriction. Regular meals matter more in winter than perfectly composed meals. Long gaps between eating increases cortisol and blood sugar swings. Gentle structure, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, at roughly consistent times creates metabolic safety. Third, warmth matters more than we realize. Cold exposure and cold foods can subtly stress the body in winter. Warm cooked meals are often easier to digest and more grounding. This isn't about seasonal food rules. It's about reducing physiological stress. Soups, stews, and warm breakfasts can support blood sugar stability simply by being easier on the system. Fourth, support sleep and morning light. Sleep is one of the most powerful regulators of blood sugar. Even small improvements in sleep quality can make a noticeable difference. Morning light exposure helps regulate cortisol rhythms, which improves glucose regulation later in the day. Finally, consistency matters more than intensity. Doing a few supportive things regularly will stabilize blood sugar far more effectively than cycling between restriction and indulgence. Winter is about maintenance, not optimization. As we talk about winter blood sugar support, I also want to mention something I personally use and trust. Vitamin D plays a quiet but powerful role in insulin sensitivity, immune health, and energy regulation, and most of us are deficient during the winter months. I use Thorne's vitamin D and K2 because it's well absorbed, third-party tested, and easy to take consistently. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about supporting the body with what it actually needs during the season. If you're curious, I'll link it in the show notes. As always, check with your healthcare provider to make sure this is right for you. One of the most freeing shifts we can make is letting go of moral language around food and energy. Nourishment is not a test of discipline. It's an act of care. Faith invites us to see the body not as something to control, but something to steward. Stewardship doesn't mean perfection. It means attentiveness. It means listening without judgment and responding with wisdom. There's a quiet reassurance in remembering that our bodies were designed to respond to seasons. Needs change. Rhythms shift. Support looks different at different times of year. When we stop fighting those changes and start working with them, we create space for stability rather than stress. Provision. Daily, consistent provision builds trust, and trust allows the body to settle. If there's one thing I hope you take from this episode, it's this. Winter blood sugar challenges are not a personal failure. They're a biological reality, and they can be supported without extremes. This week, choose one stabilizing habit. Maybe it's eating breakfast with protein. Maybe it's shortening the gap between meals. Maybe it's prioritizing sleep or choosing warmer meals. One change is enough. You don't need to do more, you need to do less consistently. The companion devotional this week explores the idea of daily provision without fear and how faith supports steadiness rather than striving. Before we close, I want to share what's coming next. Next week, I'll be opening signups for a gentle Bible study that will run alongside our wellness conversations, not as pressure or performance, but as support. It's for women who want to care for their bodies while staying rooted in faith, wisdom, and steadiness. You don't need to be ahead or have everything figured out. It's simply an invitation to walk through the seasons together with structure, grace, and space to breathe. I'll share more details in the next episode and in the newsletter if you feel called to join. So until next time, friend, stay nourished, stay cozy, and choose wellness one gentle pause at a time.